Good morning, America. Welcome to the most boring podcast on the internet. We're going to talk about insurance. My name is Drew Holley. I'm with BIS. I'm joined by Jessie Couch. Jessie is on our business insurance division here at BIS. We are an employee benefit firm, but we also have a business insurance division as well. And today we're going to talk about electrical contractors, a very specific topic. We're going to talk about a couple policies that, again, related to electrical contractors. So I'm going to start the day by asking you first, Jessie, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah?
It's a little rainy out here, but all in all, not too bad.
Okay.
Hanging in there.
Good. Well, okay, if I'm an electrical contractor, let's first start with, I've never even had insurance. I started it. I've got one employee. I'm thinking about getting more. What do I need to know from a policy standpoint that I need to have this type of coverage? Oh, you don't need this yet. Give me just some general FAQs about general contractor for electrical. Like, what do we need to know?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say it really depends on what kind of electrical contractor you are. Are you going to be working in somebody's home, doing small service jobs? Are you going to be helping build a new electrical system for a new home? Are you going to be doing apartments? Are you going to be doing commercial for commercial real estate? Or are you going to be doing the heavy duty stuff with an industrial space, like a heavy manufacturing facility? So really there's three different areas that I would say: just light residential, light commercial, and then heavy industrial. So those are three different types. And generally, when you're looking at those different types of services, it's a completely different risk profile. I mean, you have certain insurance carriers that will write a residential service electrical contractor all day, but they want nothing to do. Most want nothing to do if you're getting into a heavy industrial type application, dealing with like a concrete batch plant. They're hooking up heavy power for that equipment, the heavy equipment. So anytime you're hooking up power to expensive piece of equipment, that makes insurance carriers a little nervous.
Yeah, they're always nervous, but okay. Yeah. But when I'm hearing more nervous, so basically the more risky type of work that you're doing,
right,
it's going to put more exposure. So, at BIS, we represent lots of different carriers. Unlike maybe a State Farm agent that only represents State Farm, we might have access to Hanover or Travelers or Hartford, just to name a few. So if an electrical contractor calls us, that's probably going to be one of your first questions. Tell me what you do.
Right.
And my guess is, you tell me if I'm wrong, some, especially starting out, maybe you're not one employee, maybe you have 10, you might have a mix. You might do a little bit of residential or a lot residential, but maybe say 10% commercial. Will a carrier take that into account?
They do.
Okay.
And so some important things that you'll want to look at, especially starting out, you don't know much about insurance, you don't really know what agent to call. So I would just say it's really good to work with an agent who specializes in working with electrical contractors, because some agents out there maybe do more home and auto, and they do a great job with that, and then some light commercial. So they can do that, but working with an agent who truly specializes in construction, I think, brings a lot of value, because they'll help you understand, hey, this carrier is a really good fit for what you're doing. There can be certain exclusions with the liability policy.
So for the novice out there,
yeah,
exclusion means what?
You bought a piece of paper that doesn't cover what you actually pay for.
So those are the things that you really need to keep an eye out if you're like most Americans who hate insurance but know you need it.
Yeah.
So what you're making the case is that having an agent or broker that's actually performed or written your type of industry could help you, because in this case, they'll tell you this is excluded or this isn't.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So what's an example that you've seen over the years that a carrier might exclude in a policy?
A lot of carriers don't want anything to do with residential construction work. So that could be anything from building a new single-family home, apartments, condos. So it just depends on what type of insurance carrier you're working with, but especially as a new business, your options may be a little bit limited. And so a lot of carriers will put a residential exclusion on there. And so if you don't know about that, that could be on your policy. And then, God forbid, something happened, you needed to file a claim. The carrier says, oh, you were working on an apartment complex. Guess what? You have no coverage for that fire you just caused.
Wow. So that's pretty much the biggest complaint I hear in the world. There's not a lot of positive stories about insurance, and that's unfair to the carriers, but that's just the reality we live in. So if you're out there and you have a policy right now, what I'm hearing is you literally could have the assumption that, hey, I'm doing work on residential, but there could be one sentence that says there's an exclusion, and if a claim happens, they're not really covered.
Right.
So what if I'm an electrical contractor and they say, hey, I want you to look at it. What's your mindset? I have a policy. What are you going to do from there? Just immediately go to carriers? What's your first step?
So the first step is just to gather all the policies, that's liability, workers' comp, auto, anything else that they have, and just take a look at it, try to get my head around what are the exclusions. There can be some other exclusions such as like states, like certain carriers don't like contractors that work in New York or Colorado. Those are tougher states from a liability perspective. So there can be state exclusions. There can be subcontractor exclusions. And so the way we see the construction business going is that more contractors are using insured subcontractors to do the work. It's hard to find employees. It's hard to keep good employees. So they have a few, but they also subcontract a lot of work. And so the carriers will put a subcontractor either exclusion or limitation if you don't have the right risk transfer, which is basically a contract to your subs. And so those are just some of the details that we look for, which as a construction business owner, your job is to do construction work really well, take care of your customers, take care of your employees. My job is to make sure you have the right coverage. And of course, price is important. We want to look and see, hey, are you with a carrier that's competitive? Do you have the right states? Do you have the right coverage? But at the end of the day, my job is to just digest that information, make some recommendations, and just let you know, hey, you're in a really good spot, or hey, I think you might want to look at some other options.
Right. So again, I like to use an example. When I was out of high school, the type of car I drove, as long as it got me from A to Z, that's all I cared about. But a lot of times the car would break down.
Yeah.
You get out of college, you get out of school, you start making a little bit more money. You start thinking, oh, maybe I pay a little bit more so that I don't have those things. Insurance is probably no different. So you could be a contractor right now. You could be paying, say, $10,000 a year for a policy. But the reality is when a claim happens, if you've got 2 or 3 exclusions, you're paying for something that the carrier won't even honor. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's a $10,000 piece of paper.
Yeah. And so the hardest part of any business or business owner, I know because I'm an owner, is you're busy. You just want to grow your business. You want to go out there. So if you're a general contractor, you're probably not stopping to think, hey, I have a sub because I can't do the work myself. I don't have enough internal staff, so I'll sub it out. You're saying the moment they do that, if that piece of paper, that $10,000 a year piece of paper might have an exclusion if they use a sub, and if they don't have a sub agreement, then there's a chance that any claims that happens because that sub worked on it may not be covered.
Right.
Okay. So what can a business owner do? What advice, if you're listening to this right now, what would you tell them?
I would just tell them to try to work with an agent that specializes in working with construction companies. I feel like there's a lot of value in that, not only from a coverage perspective, but they also need a lot of certificates of insurance. So if you're an electrical contractor, you work for a lot of general contractors, they all have different insurance requirements. And you don't want your staff tied up all day dealing with these general contractors' insurance requirements. You want your agent to handle that for you and take that off your plate. So it really it's peace of mind. It makes your life easier, makes your general contractors happy that you're easy to work with. So yeah, there's just a lot of value in that.
Yeah. So the typical agent or broker might try to sell on fear and say, hey, you need to review it right now. I'm going to go against the norms and the trends and say, don't put that pressure on you. But if you have not looked at your policy in 2, 3, 5 years, chances are your business has changed and you could be walking around with liability. No matter how far you grow your business, if you have one claim, $100,000, where the carrier doesn't cover it, what difference does it make if you grow your company? Because your exposure is going to be wiped out. Mm-hmm. So what I would say, if you're out there listening, look at it once a year, at least once a year. If you have not looked at it more than once a year, you need to find an agent or broker, yes, that will review it, but more importantly, someone who's actually worked on this, for more than a decade in your case, because again, no one wants to have insurance where it doesn't cover what it is you think it's covering. And the only way to do that is have a review. So yeah, thank you today for just talking about electrical contractor insurance, and look forward to the next topic.
Awesome. Thanks.